Hello and welcome to episode 3 of my introduction to competitive Pokemon battling. I apologise for the delay in getting this video up. I'm afraid I lost the letter P on my keyboard. It got a bit jammed and I tried to clean it and stupidly managed to completely break it by destroying the little rubber thing you need to press. Whoops. I've managed to pick up a cheap keyboard now to replace it. So I'll be able to continue on, which is good, so sorry about that. But I did spend the time productively, and I've managed to download a good bit of new software that should make my videos better once I learn how to use them. I'm still getting to grips with them, so there'll probably be no real difference at the moment. But hopefully as I understand what they do, it'll start getting a bit better. But anyway, on to this episode, and this episode is on EVs. EVs are effort values, and they are how you improve your Pokemon's strengths or abilities, so their stats. EVs are gained through battling with wild Pokemon. You can get 1 or 2 EVs for a certain stat, such as you get 1 speed EV from a Zubat once you defeat it. This overall will help increase your speed stats. It's not a simple 1-to-1 ratio, however. I'm afraid it's quite hard to actually pin down the exact ratio, or at least I found it quite difficult to pin it down. But if you, for instance, completely EV train your Pokemon, and there is a set limit to how many EVs your Pokemon can have, if you manage to do it all in level 1 and then level it up to level 2, you won't notice a big difference. But if you do it at level 99 and then level it up to level 100, you'll notice a massive difference because it's really applied throughout the level. So it doesn't matter when you EV train, it's just a lot more noticeable if you do it near the end from one level to the next. But if you EV train your Pokemon at level 1 or EV train them at level 99, still when they get to 100 it'll be the same. Now an important part to note is IVs, which are individual values. Now these are the starting strengths of your Pokemon. So you can capture 2 wild Pikachus and one can be stronger than the other. There are plenty of things that affect IVs, such as the nature, and also its likes, such as some Pokemon hate losing and so on, and these kind of things can affect its IVs. And I was going to do IVs as episode 3, but I noticed that every time I tried to do it, I needed to explain EVs. So I'm going to start with EVs. Now, as I said, there's a certain amount of EVs you can give to each Pokemon, and that number is 510. Now you can give 510 EVs to Pokemon, and you can spread these out through its HP, its attack, its defense, its special attack, special defense, and speed. However, you can only give a maximum of 255 EVs to each stat. So generally, people, when they EV train a Pokemon, they will EV train him in just 2 or 3 stats. So you could have a physical defensive Pokemon, which you would EV train him in HP and in defense. This would give him a high health and a high ability to sustain a physical attack. Now, when you're EV training a Pokemon, you do have to decide what role that Pokemon is going to take, and that is going to be a further episode, I'm afraid, because quite frankly we're getting into the depths and everything's going to be connected from now on. So you will have to stay tuned to really get the complete picture, but as I said, you'll have to decide what kind of Pokemon that's going to be, what kind of role that Pokemon is going to play in your team, and then EV train it the stats that would be most helpful for that role. Now, as I said, it's the maximum amount of EVs that Pokemon can have for each stat is 255. However, it is pointless to go beyond 252 because of the rounding in the game's mechanics. You will have no added effect on its final stats if you go above 252. Now, if you're training two stats, like I said, HP and defense, for a physical defensive Pokemon, that will save you a grand total of 6 EVs, which you can just shove on to another stat like special defense or something. It won't make a big difference really, but it might, help you hold on in a certain situation, but it's unlikely. It's just a little bit of play around with the final EVs you have left over. Now, training any Pokemon in EV is quite difficult for several reasons. First, the amount that you have to get to, which is 510, as I said, EVs, and if you only get one from Zubat, that makes it difficult. However, there are ways to increase the amount of EVs you get from a battle. The other reason it's so difficult is because you can't see the EVs your Pokemon gets. You have to actually count them yourself with a piece of paper, and if you've been battling with your Pokemon up until this point and haven't been counting the EVs, you will be unable to determine how many EVs it's got and in what location. So you will have to start from a fresh Pokemon to EV train him properly. As I said, the number is rather daunting, but the different things that can help increase the speed of EV training are things like Pokerus. Now, Pokerus is probably one of the hardest things to get in the game. I mean, the odds of getting it are roughly 1 in 22,000, which is 3 times more unlikely than meeting a shiny Pokemon. And even then, if you meet a Pokemon with Pokerus, you won't know you've met it unless you either A, capture it, or B, hit it with a physical attack so that your Pokemon becomes infected. And then you'll actually have to check that your Pokemon has been infected and make sure you can spread it around your team. Now, as I said, it's really hard to find, so if you don't have it, there is absolutely no point in wasting the time to find it first while EV training, because quite frankly you could probably EV train all your Pokemon in the amount of time it takes to get Pokerus. Now, I don't know if it can be traded over trades, but I do have Pokerus, and quite frankly I'm alright with trading it with anyone who wants it. I don't really need anything in return. I've been playing Pokemon games since they pretty much came out, and as I said before, I've never done competitive battling before, but what I have been doing is collecting all the Pokemon, and in fact in my Pearl cartridge I have them all. So I don't really need anything. It's just, I'm quite happy to give them over, and I'll even shove my MSN and my Skype at the end of this video. If you want it though, I will have to sort out my internet connection, because the password protection is above that of the DS. And I think the DS can only handle web connections, so I'll have to get that sorted first. So give me a little bit to change that up, because I have to change all my connections on all my devices, which will be fun. But yeah, as I said, I'm happy to give that out as long as not 1 million people are asking, but I find that unlikely. So if I start getting 1 million people asking for this, I'll probably, stop doing it. But as of now, I'm very happy to hand it out. If it can be traded, I'm not 100% sure. But when you do get Pokerus, or if you do get Pokerus, the way to spread it around your team is you shove it into the 6th position of your team, which is the best one, go for a bunch of battles, and then it should be spread around your entire team. Now, Pokérus does last forever on your Pokemon once your Pokemon gets it. However, it is only infectious to other Pokemon for a limited amount of time. Now, this means that once your Pokemon is past the infectious stage, it will no longer be able to give it off to other Pokemon, so you can give them Pokérus and make it easier to EV train other Pokemon. Now, you want to put your Pokemon, or one Pokemon with Pokérus, into your box, and when it's in the Pokebox, in Bill's box, it should stay with Pokérus forever as long as it's in there. Generally, a good idea to affect a few Pokemon you don't really care about and have them kept in a box, and that way you'll be able to always have Pokérus to spread around your team. And I don't know what the limit is for it wearing off, well, for the infection stage to wear off, but some people were saying it's when you go past midnight. Some people say that it's a certain number of steps, some people say it's a certain number of battles. I'm afraid I don't know, but it's not very long. It lasts a reasonable time, but not a great amount of time. So as I said, it's really good because it doubles the EVs you earn from a battle. Now, in itself, it might not be so great, other than halving the amount of battles you have to take part in. But when coupled with other items, it is absolutely brilliant. And we will get into what those other items are in the next part, which should be either up now or up in a little while, because it should be finished at the same time. Just wait for YouTube to finish uploading it. So I'll see you in part 2.